When I was 6 years old, my grandparents moved from Long Beach, California to this little piece of heaven in southern Oregon called Grants Pass. Now, if you've never been there, it's right along the Rogue River Highway. It's the kind of place that when you go, you're gonna go river rafting and apple picking and hiking. And every summer as kids, my sister and I would beg mom and dad to let us go spend time with grandma and grandpa. And sometimes they'd let us go for a month at a time. And I remember on one of these trips noticing that my grandma had a very interesting way of starting every day. She would sit in a chair, she'd pour a cup of coffee, and she would work on sewing projects that she had absolutely no intention of ever finishing. I know it sounds strange. It was interesting to me as a kid, until I realized that my grandma wasn't sewing because she had to. This is one of the few things in life that wasn't a task that needed to be done. This was her time to reflect and to think about life and the places she had been and the people she met. So if you were smart enough to sit by my grandmother while she sewed, she'd drop incredible wisdom about life. One morning I walked in the living room and she looked up at me and said, "Son," which was so confusing. I don't know why she called me that. But she said, "Life is not about the moment you enter this world. You don't get to choose that moment. No one's ever chosen when they would be born, where they would be born, what they would look like. And yet so many of us get stuck in life because of how the thing started for us. That's not up to you, so don't get caught in that moment." Later on, she would say, "Life isn't about the moment you leave the world either. See, that moment's always going to come too soon, before we wish it would." To her, the measure of a good life was simply how you spent the little moments in between. And I watched her do this so well every day. She was never too busy to turn off the TV, even if her favorite show was on, if you had a question, and give you her full attention. She would try to teach us as kids how we could do this for other people. She would say things like, "When you meet a stranger, and every day you should make a new friend, just try and be a little kinder than necessary. If a good friend invites you one day for coffee or tea, never turn them down." Probably her favorite life lesson of all was this: if you're going to make someone a meal, use butter, right? Now, she wasn't wealthy and she wasn't famous, but every day I watched as she just made the most of those little moments that we often take for granted. Every person to her was special. Every conversation was important. And I know that if you were to ask her, she would just tell you that's how she chose to live life. But that's stuck with people. And it's that way of being that when you and I choose to care more about others than we do about ourselves, those little moments that don't seem like much at the time begin to weave themselves together into an incredible life. So thank you for taking a moment to watch this video. And if you have someone in your life who's been an encouragement, why don't you pass this along and share it with them as a way of saying thank you.